Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Kristen White, clinical psychologist and mom of 3, and this is the Mom Degree, where we provide support and tools to help women feel less crazy and be more effective in their role as mom. So if you're following along, we're in a series right now on shaping our kids' behavior. How do we, get them to do what we want, but even better yet, turn them into like good little people that we enjoy being with, we're proud of. Imagine if you enjoyed spending time with your kids and you were proud of them at least most of the time when you went out in public and not, embarrassed. We'll all have those moments. But imagine that. It'd be glorious. That's our goal here, right? Plus, people that you can trust when they grow up and move out of your house. So, how do we shape their behavior? We talked about some positive things we do, praise, behavioral charts, things like that. Then we spent a couple weeks talking about some of like the deeper questions of like, why are we even disciplining? Stopping and asking ourselves why they're doing what they're doing, why it's such a big deal to us and so upsetting. And that's now moving us in. The reason I give you all that context is in this video and a couple of the next ones, we are going to talk about some of the tools we can use, kind of, more discipline-like tools. And they are useful, but we're going to talk about them, first of all, in the context of how we use them to in the context of what we've been talking about. With all these whys in mind, we're going to talk about how that changes how we do them. And I want you to remember these aren't your only tools and they're not necessarily your starting point. So that's why I'm kind of bringing up the context again, guys. If we want to shape their behavior, it's not just about punishing them. It's not just about disciplining them. Honestly, I feel like that's almost our last resort. And it starts with all the things we've already talked about. It starts with, catching them being good, praising them at that, shaping them through the values. Those are almost our like first line of defense. And the discipline comes when, in spite of all of that, they're still acting out. And then we still have to figure out how do we do it well. So that's what we're going to talk about in these next couple videos. And then we'll probably come full circle to bring all this together again. All right. So today I want to talk about timeouts. How do you do timeouts well? Okay. So we're going to get into some of the logistics and the practical. But then I want to also talk about what we do after the timeout. I think is actually the most critical part. And it's going to make sense in light of these questions we've been talking about of all the whys. Okay. So I'm getting ahead of myself though. So first, some of you are bored right now, either hang in there with me or fast forward. But for those of you that like practically logistically timeouts, you've never done them or they haven't worked, let me give you a few words about that. Okay. So ideally you're going to set up a timeout when everybody's calm. So if this is a new thing you're using, and I know we're talking mostly about little kids here, although some of these principles are going to apply and you're going to hear me repeat them next week and when we talk about disciplining older kids. So you want to prep the kids when everybody's calm. You're calm, they're calm. You want to tell them that you're going to be doing timeouts. When they misbehave, hopefully specific examples when they, for my son, we've been following, hits his sister, steals toys, right? You want to tell them that when they're calm and tell them this is a place for you to kind of be able to calm down and check yourself, see what's going on, check in, and we can all calm down and then take a time out from play to think about what's going on. Okay. So we're trying to tell them it's coming and frame it as more of like a place to take a breather. Come on, guys. We all have moments when like we're like fuming, at least internally, if not externally, and we need a break. And we're not going in the right direction with our behavior, and we need a break to kind of take a breather, think about where we need to be doing, redirect. And that's how we want to frame these for our kids. They're not going to get it yet, but already we're sending them the message. My goal is not just to punish you. My goal is to help you behave better and be able to think through on your own how to behave better. Okay, so we tell them these outs are coming. I think this isn't a hard and fast rule. I like picking a specific spot. I think that helps. It's easier to say, go to the timeout chair, go to the timeout corner than it is to like have to eat. Some people use like a mat. That's great. I don't want to have to get out of mat every time though. So for me, I like one particular spot. I would say pick an area that you can kind of see them, but they're out of the way if possible. Ours is like in the middle of the room because our house just isn't set up well for that. It's great for other things. But I have a friend who has like a hallway, a kind of like semi-dark hallway that leads to the garage. Perfect place for timeout because it's like off the main room. You can kind of see the kid, but they're really out of, out of the play area, right? You can't send them to their room. They're just going to play with their toys. So you have to be able to keep an eye on them, but try to remove them from the action as much as possible. So we have a chair that's a timeout chair. All right, then when it happens, here, this is key, you guys. Remember we talked about our goal is not to instill fear. It's not to punish. So when they do something that warrants a timeout, the ideal attitude is like, oops, you broke the rule, timeout. Right? Okay, now I am telling you, I don't do that all the time. I know that's really hard, but that's what we're striving for. If you are pissed off, then the good news is you get a timeout to calm down too before you talk about their behavior. But the ideal thing is stay calm. We save our energy for the good stuff, and the hard stuff, the bad stuff, we want to just be like, oops, okay, this is what happens. So that's ideal. That's what you're shooting for. Oops, you hit your sister. Please go get in the timeout chair. That's what you're shooting for. And remember, the reason is if you yell and scream, which I've had those moments, they're afraid now. And they can't go sit in the chair and think. They're going to go sit in the chair and be flooded by emotion, be flooded by fear, be flooded by upset that they're disconnected from you. They can't think about their behavior. They can't think about anything because remember, there's no blood in the front of our brain. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go back and watch the earlier videos. That's why it's important to stay calm. All right. If they don't go to the chair, so it's up to you, your kids. Sometimes you can give them, I asked you to get in the chair. I can't start the time till you get in the chair. A lot of times with my 2-year-old, I'll just pick him up and put him in the chair. And I don't, it's gentle, but it's not real cuddly. I'm not like picking him up like, oh, come here, you want this. It's like I'm picking him up and holding him out here and depositing him in the chair. So that's what I do. If they get out of the chair or they're, generally, by the way, once they're in there, I say chair, spot, whatever it is, you want to kind of try to ignore them for the most part. Don't argue, don't get involved in conversations. Obviously, they shouldn't have toys there, but if they're upset, maybe they can have like a special, like a lovey object or something. But then you kind of want to not interact with them. The only time I'll really initiate interaction or respond is if my son's getting out of the chair or if he's trying to play with one of his sisters, because again, ours isn't in an ideal spot. So in those moments, then I'll remind him, okay, I'm going to have to restart the timer until you get back in the chair. And that's basically, and usually I'll just say that a few times until he initiates. But again, if you had to, you could go physically put the child back in the chair. I will say if you've not done this before or you've not really been consistent in following through with it, you're going to get a lot of pushback. So for the most part, this works now. I rarely have to warn my son more than once to get back in the chair. We rarely have to start it over. But I have had power struggles with my older daughter where we did this for like 20, 30, 40 minutes. Restarting the timer. I learned I was engaging with her a little bit too much and giving it too much energy, and I think she was playing off on that, but she also had to learn we were serious. And when the whole family really started ignoring her, all of a sudden she realized she didn't want that and she wanted to get out of the chair. And so then it was like it finally clicked and now she can do a timeout too. But don't be surprised if there's some pushback the first time or as they're learning this or they're, if you haven't been consistent, they're going to push back on you. That's normal. You got to see it through. You got to do your best to stay calm. You got to keep telling them, I'm not going to start the timer. I'm going to start the timer over until you stay in the chair and then just trying to ignore them. And I promise for most kids, it will work eventually, but you may have to stick it out. Then most people say a minute per year. So my 2-year-old gets 2 minutes when he's quiet and still. If he gets out of the chair, it starts over. So again, it could be longer, unfortunately. All right. So I think that's a lot of the logistics about how to do a timeout and how to troubleshoot some of those main issues. Some of you are like, yeah, I know this. Some of you are like, that's why it hasn't worked before. Here's the critical piece though. Here's what I really want to tell you. Remember, we're not trying to just punish them. So when the timeout's over, it's not like go play. When the timeouts are over in our house, it's okay, now timeout's over, come talk to me. And I want to immediately like touch my son. Now I'm going to be a little more cuddly and connective. If I'm not like fuming still, hopefully I calm myself down. And now I want to immediately see that we're okay and we're connected. And I want to establish together 3 things. I want to establish what happened, why he was in timeout, why that event happened, and what he could have done differently. And guess what? Are you guys listening really closely? My goal is to not give him all these answers. He's 2, so of course I'm going to have to help him and I'm going to have to give him some of them and I'm going to have to give him options and provide him words. But my goal is for him to be able to start thinking this way himself because I don't want to give timeouts all day long for the rest of his life. I want to teach him to think through. So here, let me give you an example. For him, it's often things like he hit his sister, he pushed his sister, he whatever. Okay, so, okay, Guy, why were you in timeout? And he can usually tell me actually now. First I might have had to tell him, but remember I told him when he went into timeout. So he can, hit Emmy. Okay, you hit Emmy. That's right. We don't hit Emmy. So why did you hit Emmy? That's the next question. Now this one, he's 2, so he usually can't answer that. And if I saw it, I can kind of provide it, or if not, I know what the normal reasons are and I can kind of guess. So it may be like, I saw, I'll still ask, why did you hit her, to get him to think that way? 'Cause he'll say, or I don't know. Well, I saw Emmy maybe trying to play with that toy with you, and I imagine maybe you were a little bit frustrated. Is that right? So I'm going to give him some of the words and let him test them. If I didn't see anything, I'll be like, was it maybe hard to share with Emmy, or were you trying to play with Emmy? And it's like multiple choice. Then he can often grasp one and give it back to me. So he does need my help, but I want to do as little as possible, right? I want to do as much as he needs me, but not the part he's capable of, because I want him to start thinking like this. Okay. So yeah, then we get the answer to that. You hit Emmy because she was trying to play with your toy. Then, guys, my goal isn't to be pissed off and punish him. So I'm gonna be like, yeah, that's really hard to share, isn't it? It's really hard to have a little sister that's in your space and wants your stuff, right? I'm connecting with him. I'm empathizing. I'm validating. It's okay that he feels frustrated. I don't want him to stop feeling that. I don't want him to learn to hide it. It's okay. What I want him to do is recognize when he's frustrated and learn to express it in a different way. So yes, I get that you're frustrated. And what could you have done instead of hitting her? What could you have done that would have let you keep playing and not end up in timeout, right? And I'm too verbose. So really probably one question is better, as succinct as possible. You want to get the kid to talk. And again, this is a question sometimes he can answer because we've done this a million times. And sometimes I need to help him. Maybe next time you could try to hand Emmy a different toy and see if she wants it. What do you think about that? Okay. Maybe you could ask mommy for help, right? And I'll usually have him repeat it back to me once we come up with an answer. And then the last step is he has to go apologize to Emmy. We're already pretty connected during this. I'll try to make an effort to connect with him afterwards. But I want him to then, of course, apologize to his sister. Okay, so that's really the key, guys, here, though, is what happened, why did it happen, and what could they have done differently? And you want to do this in a way that's empathetic, that's validating of their experience, and that tells them your feeling is not wrong. Your response behavior, a way of expressing that feeling, is what was wrong, and that's what we want to change. And I want him eventually to be able to come up with that alternate behavior. So we're doing the same things. Ask mommy for help. That's a common answer. I don't have to come up with a new thing every time, right? I want him to have, a handful of ideas of how he can deal with these emotions and to try them. And it might even be, you could go hit the punching bag if you're really angry. We don't hit people, but punching bags are okay, right? So we're teaching them how to do this appropriately. There's so much more I want to say on this, but I'm over. This is my second time recording this video because it was too long, but it's still too long, and I'm sorry. This is good stuff. You just can fast forward the parts you don't want. Okay, so your mom challenge is to go try this. And if your kids are too old for timeout, we're going to talk about these 3 questions. So start the questions and post your experiences, your thoughts, your questions below. Remember, it's just like Jesus. We're not trying to just change the outside of the cup, clean the outside. We want to clean the inside and make them good people in their hearts inside who know what they're feeling and how to respond to it and are nice, kind people. Okay, I'm done. I'm sorry. This is such good stuff, you guys. All right. I hope it helps. Much love and many blessings. Until next time on The Mom Degree.